themselves the elite.
If not us, who?
A little bit of the bubbly.
And if not now, when?
We don't care about race or gender or sex or religion. If you're an elite athlete, we want you.
This is an official declaration of war.
Change the world.
We are gonna change the whole universe! This is what you call a paradigm shift.
Will you follow us?
All elite wrestling.
For the 27th time, it's Monday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for the next chapter of the only professional wrestling podcast that is changing the world every week. This is Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast. I am your host, Bryce Reed. I am joined by my friend, my co-host, my tag team partner, Mr. Jonathan Davis.
How's it going, dude?
In 2 weeks, AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite debuts on TNT, which means in 2 weeks, this show moves from Monday mornings to Friday mornings, which means we will be launching our Patreon, and you will be getting some awesome content and perks in return for helping us make this show better every week. Get stoked. The new age of Seeing the Elite, an AEW podcast, is coming, and it's just around the corner. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Jonathan and I are two friends, fans, lovers of professional wrestling who are here every single Monday morning for a little while longer with all the latest news from All Elite Wrestling. This is not a sports entertainment show. It's an entertaining sports show supported by fans like you from all over the world on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars. Just like Meltzer, it makes us feel so sweet. Jonathan, how sweet?
Too sweet, dude.
I gotta say, I'm watching you through the camera here pet that dog like Dr. Evil, and it's so funny. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite with no G, SEEINTHEELITE on Twitter, Seeing the Elite. But if you want to be a part of the inner circle, if you really want to be a part of our ring crew, tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. We'll give you an invite to our exclusive Discord server where everyone's having a ball all week talking about MJF making an ass out of himself. Shout out to the champ, man. Pumpkin Skull, JD on the time codes. Let's move to the quote. The quote for this week: I don't play Dungeons and Dragons. That's MJF. And oh man, what a just kerfuffle this caused, man.
One very small sentence that has just lit the internet on fire.
For the uninitiated, MJF posted a photo of himself post-workout looking like a young Brian Cage, just like a julienne salad, and he's up there, and all he posts next to the picture is "I don't play Dungeons and Dragons." This is, of course, in reference to his match with Brandon Cutler, which was announced the day before, which we'll talk about later on the show. Cutler sent back a photo of himself looking slightly less swole, but still, you know, like a guy who can kick some asses, that said, "I do."
Yeah, not really a guy you would expect to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
But then, you know, with some of the quotes, and, you know, I know some of the things that as they've come out, because, you know, I do keep up with D&D podcasts and such, but
right.
Oh man, this has been so good.
I know all of you who are in the inner circle at home are going, "Oh man, what a perfect time to call Anthony." And I agree with you, but we couldn't do it because he's busy.
Because he sucks.
He's busy, couldn't appear on the show, but I'm sure he'd have wild commentary about this. But he's indisposed tonight. Jonathan and I recording this episode a little earlier, so if something happens on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday that's huge, we won't be able to talk about it till next week. That's unfortunately how it is. due to scheduling. But so the photo of MJF and Brandon Cutler got stuck together and put up on Twitter, actually hit the front page of There Was an Attempt, which is a hugely popular subreddit, and had a bunch of people fighting about, the normal stuff when wrestling stuff hits the mainstream, about wrestling being fake and all this stuff. But then the D&D community, of course, really took to this thing.
Yeah, he was on r/roast me, just using that picture. It was so good. And then as the D&D community and the celebrities got involved, and I don't mean just the really famous D&D podcast. I'm talking legit celebrities like Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, another guy who you wouldn't expect to play D&D because he's just a chiseled god.
And he fucks, dude.
Yeah. And it's been so funny seeing all this, and I've enjoyed it so much. This morning, as I was coming into work, some of my coworkers who are, we're all nerds at work. Some of my friends play D&D, and they're like, we know you do a wrestling podcast and you watch wrestling and stuff. Do you know who this MJF guy is? And I'm like, yeah, I do.
The salt of the earth.
He's a real great guy, real salt of the earth guy. He's just a real great guy. And they're like, well, fuck him. And I'm like, I'm kidding. He's just a total shithead. Let me show you some videos. And
Let me tell you some first-hand account stories.
Yeah, and I told him some stuff from StarCast that I saw, which was just amazing. And then I showed him the video from Fyter Fest. And I just had people rolling because, it was way early for my industry, and we were the only ones in the office. So I had them up on the TV that we have in our workspace, and we were all rolling and laughing. And then, our manager came by, and I had to turn it off because he wouldn't get it.
I think, man, it takes a particular talent, and we are in kind of a day and age where you can do this, but the fact that he's fired up this community in playing this sort of varsity bully character that he plays, kind of, that he's fired up this community in a really kind of harmless way. It's not like he fired up a community for being transphobic or racist or something like that. There are wrestlers who would say, you can't, nobody has the guts to piss anybody off anymore. You can't piss anybody off anymore because people get too heated about it online or whatever. I think you just have to kind of go after things that are people's hobbies or whatever, and that's how you kind of get it in the community. And it's wild to see someone succeeding so much in a is it kayfabe, is it character sort of way, so long after kayfabe was declared dead, and in a lot of ways still is. He just kind of has the guts to really go all in on this character. It's wild. It's really wild to see, and really interesting to see a community get worked to such a big extent. They think it's a real thing, and they're not just it's a wrestler guy. He's just whatever.
But yeah, the best thing is last week he had the thing with Applebee's, and people were sending him literal death threats, and then he was posting them on Twitter and still fucking roasting people.
Right.
And now you have an even nerdier part of the world who are trying to roast him, and he's just nerd, go away, pencil neck. He's
killing, man. And he's so, and it's been said time and time about him. He's so young, and we'll talk about this on our recap episode. I mean, if there isn't a guy with a bigger upside,
we should just call the recap show the MJF episode.
In the world of professional wrestling, I don't know that there is a wrestler with a bigger upside than him right now. I think he could be the AEW guy when we look back in just a couple of years, because he's on this whole other level in the true art of the business, which is getting a reaction from people, and he's just fucking great at it. So That's it's great. But if you haven't looked into that, you can go and look into that. Every famous D&D person that you can imagine, he was all over Reddit with it, with a sentence.
Yeah,
that was
the best like summary of it was Anthony, who does follow a lot of D&D people because of his podcast, and also that's something he's really interested in, and is telling us like, yeah, I can't get on Twitter today because all I see is people trying to shit talk MJF, and it's just I can't see anything else.
Yeah, he said his feed was flooded with MJF stuff. Let's get to the quote, though. Let's get to the actual quote, because I do have an actual quote that isn't something people would know. It's, quote, "You can call it a war if you want. To me, we're in a completely different kind of business. What they're doing is different from what we're doing, and it's weird because it's hard to say that you're going to war with people that I call my friends, and yet we are going to war. Yet when I sit back and look at the grand picture, it's like I'm going to war with these dudes that if we were on the same show together, the same show with the same promotion, let's pretend there are no wars. Let's just pretend there are no promotions. Let's just pretend there's one big promotion. If they were on the same show as me, they'd be in the dark match. They'd be in the opening match, and I'm in the main event match. You're going to call that a war? You want to call that competition? Go ahead. I mean, maybe it's fun for you to do. That's cool. But we're on different planets, and you're not going to see that right away. Oh, and you're going to see that right away when you see 10,000 plus arenas sold out. You're going to see smiles on fans' faces, and you're going to see real stars. Not developmental talent, but real stars there on your television every week. The Savage.
Fucking dude, just actual savagery. And as much as it is him, he is acknowledging all of the war and just calling people out.
Yeah,
he's right.
He's right in some ways. Now, WWE it looks as though they're making moves to kind of change this perception of NXT, even though that's the whole fucking point of the show, and has been since its inception.
Sure, but it's not. It's the way they're doing it is that it's not anymore, and that's fine. It's perfectly fine.
And they're talking about moving Kevin back.
Good.
I wouldn't be surprised to see them move Sammy back, which I think would be a good move for him because Vince has just completely destroyed what could have been the biggest star in the industry.
Two of them, yeah.
And maybe they'll move Joe back.
I don't see that being good for anyone. I feel like if Joe's not going to be on the main roster, he should leave. And if he wants to leave and doesn't want to go to AEW, he should really just retire. Because Joe can't do indies anymore.
I think that he could. I think it wouldn't be the best move for him, but I think that he could.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm really surprised he never had a longer Japanese run in him, but
yeah, I think because Impact, but yeah, I would honestly agree with that.
He's right about it in some ways. It seems like kind of a challenge to put more stars on the show, and to say that AEW has a ton of like stars, I don't really know if that's true, in the way that they're stars that like newcomers would recognize. I don't know if that's really there. I mean, Cody kind of, but like not really. The Bucks kind of, but not really. Kenny himself, but not really. These are guys that are, I wouldn't say an Adam Cole or someone like that is that much lower below these guys in terms of star power.
It's kind of like this, and the way I see it is that this statement it's a challenge to WWE to make both products better.
Right, to make stars, because if you don't make stars, we're going to have stars pretty quick here.
Yeah, and he's not...
What he's saying is, you're going to see stars every week. While there aren't a lot of people who are on the AEW roster who I'm like, oh man, that guy's a star right now, he's huge, he's making big money, he's mainstream. There are a number of people on the AEW roster where I'm like, how many Kenny Omega matches on AEW television is it going to take before people go, holy shit, this guy's fucking crazy? You know what I mean? Same with MJF. How many MJF promos on television is it going to take before he's fucking huge? How many Sammy Guevara matches? Right. Clearly not many. How many Sammy Guevara matches is it going to take before people are like, oh my God, this guy's really good? You know? I mean, same with Cody, same with the Bucks. The Lucha Brothers, you know, huge, while not technically part of the company, and surprisingly missing from a lot of sort of press releases that we got this week because they're not officially signed with the company still. They're still booked to be on television and are still going to have, they're going to be huge.
Honestly, it's just a matter of time and waiting for things to, quote, expire. But yeah, as soon as the Lucha Bros are a great example. They are very well known to us as wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm.
When they are put on TV and not pay-per-view, but just flat-out TV and putting on one of those matches, people are going to go nuts.
Yeah, on TNT, you know, because they've been on TV before. They were, of course, both big parts of Lucha Underground, but that was in the middle. That was a tree in the woods, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Put on TNT in that spot, it's gonna be huge,
which,
you know, and
should be second week of October.
Yeah, and
or
with
third
such
week. Second or third, something like that.
Yeah, whatever's going through there. With you know, even Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, for as kind of strange a gimmick they are, have generated a ton of people talking about them, both people who are fans and people who aren't. So I think his statement is maybe a little earlier than it needs to be, but I don't think he's 100% wrong. I think that the upside for AEW is probably bigger than the upside for the current NXT roster, which it should be, because the current NXT roster is a lot of talents that need more time. That was the whole point up until about 3 months ago. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are on that. Being the Elite number 170, fingers crossed. This episode opens with the man himself, who sits at Cody's desk with 3 placards in front of him. The first reads, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, Salt of the Earth. The second reads, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, Junior Executive Vice President. And the third reads, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, Cody's best friend. The camera pans up to MJF, who tells us that he's just doing some work at his desk, but has time to, at the request of Cody and Tony Khan, make an announcement. The announcement is that Wednesday, November 20th date that we've all been waiting for will broadcast live from the Indiana Farmers Coliseum in Indianapolis, Indiana. Tickets go on sale. Well, they're on sale now by the time you hear this. MJF spends the next 2 minutes or so talking shit about Indiana, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, the Indy 500. MJF promises that his best friend Cody will be there with the AEW World Championship around his waist, because remember, this will be after Full Gear. After he beats up a little bit of the dad bod, Chris Jericho, in MJF's own words, in comes Tony Schiavone, who asks MJF what he's doing at Cody's desk. MJF immediately becomes defensive. He says, and I quote, Cody said, I love you, Max. When I'm not around, this desk is yours, end quote. Tony says that he has to talk to Cody anyway, so he'll just ask. And MJF freaks out and splits immediately, begging Schiavone not to tell Cody. Schiavone sits at Cody's desk, moves all of MJF's desk placards to the side, and then reaches into the right-hand drawer of the desk and pulls out a placard of his own. It reads, Tony Schiavone, head slapdick, as he answers a call from Cody. This, the head slapdick thing is a reference to his podcast, an idiom that he used a lot on his podcast and probably before then as well. But that's kind of where you hear it the most, is in reference to his podcast. which is funny. After the title sequence, we're in a hotel room with all three members of SCU. Just as Frankie finishes a story from his early days that sounds like it killed in the room, Frankie then changes the subject to an important one that the group hasn't yet been able to talk about. Which of the two will be entered officially in the AEW Tag Team Tournament? CD suggests that Frankie and Scorpio should do it, as they are both closer in age to the rest of the competition than he is, and he's feeling like his age may be an issue against a group of young talent. Scorpio disagrees, feels as though CD and Kazarian's experience may be a greater advantage than his relative youth, and he suggests that CD and Frankie be the team based on Scorpio and Frankie's rather lackluster AEW record alone. In the interest of playing devil's advocate, Frankie suggests that the team be CD and Scorpio because nobody has ever seen them as a team, as a twosome before, and that makes them less scoutable. They ultimately decide not to decide right now, but to push the decision down the road closer to when they'll have to let the office know, which CD says will be October the 1st. This is kind of interesting because it has been labeled as whoever of the three SCU wants, right? There was kind of a funny interaction on Twitter this week where AEW posted a tweet that was like, which one of these two teams will win between the Best Friends and SCU? And Chuck tweeted, probably them, because there's three of them.
Oh, man. Chucky with the honest moments.
I mean, there's three of them, right? But it is going to be just two of them involved, and we do not know which one. It also seemingly doesn't have to be the same two each match either, which is a huge advantage. But we'll see. Who would you think will end up being the one, Jonathan?
You know, if you look at the picture that was posted online in the bracket itself, it is Kazarian and CD. So that's who I automatically thought it would be. So I really feel like they're going to pull some New Day shenanigans, and I'm not upset about it at all. I think it'll be great. It's going to be a little bit more difficult for them because you got two white dudes and a black dude. You can't, it's not three black dudes. So, I think Scorpio and Kazarian make the most sense, and CD come out as manager, in quotes. But I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe it'll be Christopher Daniels and Scorpio. That'd be interesting. That'd be a different set.
That's the one that I'm hoping that it is, only because it hasn't been done before, like they said, at least not in AEW, and supposedly very sparingly outside of that as well. So I think that would be really cool to see them go with, just because it's different and nobody knows what'll happen, But yeah, it's interesting to think about. I don't know who it'll be. But I would hope that it's Scorpio and CD, just because it's new, Next, the Bucks announced that they will be coming to Victorville, California on September 25th, which is Anthony's birthday, for a special free meet and greet and book giveaway at Cracker Barrel from 2 to 4 p.m. So if you want to get a copy of the Bucks book in hardcover for free and meet them, that's the place to go. I guess 2 to 4 at the Cracker Barrel in Victorville, California on September 25th.
Of course, it's at a fucking Cracker Barrel.
Do lunch while you're there, man.
Get you some pancakes, man.
Next, the Bucks announce... Oh, I already read that. Fuck. Next, they walk over to Brandon Cutler's new house. Cutler shows them around the place, shows them some of his new BTE equipment. But Matt isn't there to talk about that. He's tired of seeing Cutler get bullied by people like Sammy G and MJF, so they've made a match for Cutler. It will take place on October 2nd on the debut episode of Wednesday Night Dynamite, Brandon Cutler versus MJF, which is this match is going to be great.
Yeah, it really, really will, man. It's going to be so. it's going to be a lot like some of the old Jack Evans matches where MJF is going to shit talk the entire
Just
time.
so much. Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's going to be like a wild, match where it's these crazy things happen in between the ropes. But you're giving. I think Brandon Cutler is kind of the perfect baby face for this generation of like adults who. It's still okay to do kid stuff that you enjoy, even though you're an adult. This kind of very relatable, kind of everyman character. Like MJF ends up saying later on, he's a very everyman kind of character. Giving MJF that type of person to pick on, oh man, through the roof with this guy already. You know what I mean? Like, because you're basically saying MJF beat up the audience.
Yes.
You know
yes.
what I mean?
Beat up the audience, shit talk the audience, because MJF is going to cut a probably 3-minute promo before the match.
Right.
It's going to be so funny, dude. I can't wait. It's just one of those reasons. This is like another reason why I'm really happy that I'm not going to be in the crowd for this, because I want to hear this on TV so that I can hear everything.
They get Cutler all psyched up. They give him the nickname 2 Contract Cutler. They're asking him, like, are you going to do this and this? Are you going to do both? You know what I mean? Before asking to see the rest of the house. We then go to BTE Mailbag. A fan asked Peter Avalon what the name of his autobiography will be once it's written. Peter Avalon says, "The Librarian. Leave me alone, please. Leave me alone, please."
Good stuff, man. I thought it was funny.
Punny. Very punny.
Very punny. Very, very punny.
We next see a seemingly hungover Kenny Omega who apologizes for last week. He's able to admit that he was particularly hurt by the loss to Pac, and it's a particularly heavy regret in his collection of late. He promises that he will try to be better in the future before trying to wrap up the show. We then back out to Matt and Nick editing Shades of last week, and it turns out they didn't even ask Kenny to do a BTE mailbag this week. Nick has 4 MacBooks in front of him on the table, which is really funny. At least one of them was old enough that it would be of no use editing, like pre-aluminum era MacBook, right? Where it was all like plastic and shit.
That's not how this works.
Matt is against airing the segment, citing that his friend's mental health is more important than ratings. Nick says he agrees, and Matt exits as the camera pans down to show Nick's fingers are crossed. And then back to the Kenny clip for a little more incoherent rambling to end the show. And that's the end of it.
Yeah, the incoherent rambling was full on. I'm on a lot of drugs level of ranting.
Yeah,
man.
it seemed incoherent in an intoxicated kind of way.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going with Kenny, but they're going in a real interesting way. I don't think this was planned for post Moxley. And they're just kind of rolling with shit a little bit, but that they have built this angle so cleanly and so quickly to maintain the quality of it that he lost to Pac, and this has broken him mentally is an amazing thing. And this is something that's going to be like, it's a little dangerous on TV, but I think it's going to be done very, very well, and it's going to be really, really interesting.
And they didn't do this sort of like kind of scared of it thing they could have done where they, threw this Moxley and Kenny match as soon as they could on TV or whatever. Like, they're like, no, we'll push it back to the next pay-per-view and we'll just work up until then, right? So I'm excited to see that, and I'm excited that they were more temperate about it and really kind of approached it and were like, okay, like, if we got to push it back, then let's push it back, but let's still do it correctly,
Yeah, and we didn't really feel that way before Double or Nothing because it was thrown on them last minute, and they ran with what they had, and what turned out of that turned out to be really, really good.
Right.
But now that they are having the time of being able to run, 2.5 months or 2 months worth of promos up to this and build a story out of this that they probably kind of came up with in under a week. That's amazing, dude.
Yeah. All Elite Wrestling's Wednesday night show is officially called Dynamite. This comes to us from Emily Pratt for Up Rocks. Earlier this month, All Elite Wrestling filed a trademark for All Elite Wrestling Dynamite, and it looked like that could be the name of their upcoming television series on TNT. Today, a press release from the company confirmed that that is the case. Now, we've known about this rumor for a long time.
Yeah, we just haven't really talked about it because it came up about every 2 weeks.
Yeah, for months since we started doing this podcast.
Yeah, and for the most part, we just ignored it because, like, okay, cool, they're filing trademarks. Who gives a fuck?
Right, they filed trademarks for, like, Bash at the Beach or something like that, too, right?
Tried to,
it doesn't mean,
but yeah.
It doesn't mean they're ever going to use it, right?
Right,
but
I saw it last week before we recorded. I was like, okay, cool, we're not going to talk about this. It's not important. So
it's not that it's not important. It's just that we try, at least on this show, not to comment on things that are just rumor right now. And a trademark filing is a little more than a rumor, but it's not. It's still speculative how they're going to use it. So we haven't mentioned it. We figured, hey, we'll just wait until it's announced, right? Like
you could trademark. I mean, this as the example. You could trademark All Elite Wrestling Dynamite and literally call a tag team that.
Right.
It could have been absolutely anything in AEW. There was no way for anyone to really know that the TV show was going to be called Dynamite until
could have been a video game, could have been a pay-per-view, could have been anything.
Yeah. I think I had seen something about Full Gear before they actually announced what that was, and that honestly figured, okay, they're fucking with Adam Page, and they're going to release like some T-shirt of Full Gear Adam Page, and that'll be a new slogan or some shit.
A merch line,
yeah,
right? Something like that, right? Yeah, so it's been kind of on our news list for a while, but it's really. I think we talked about it back the first time they announced, maybe when they trademarked Wednesday Night Dynamite originally.
Yeah, because when that came through, it was they registered Tuesday Night Dynamite, Wednesday Night Dynamite, and I believe Thursday Night Dynamite, because they did not know what night of the week it would be on. So they were like, we know we won't be on Wednesdays, we know we won't be on Fridays. Boom.
Right. And so it's been kind of falling around till then, but it just hasn't ended up on the show. But here it is. It's official. It's officially called All Elite Wrestling Dynamite, which will be colloquially and probably referred to in marketing materials and stuff as Wednesday Night Dynamite, just like Monday Night Raw is.
Yeah.
But Monday Night Raw is technically called WWE Raw.
Yes. All I really have to say is they released some like poster like images on Instagram and stuff today.
And they're awesome.
I wish they did make them in posters because I would really like to have one because it's a beautiful piece of art.
Yeah. Some really great photo composition with this sort of different color splash thing that they've been doing. Really cool. The wrestlers most heavily featured in the trailer are Chris Jericho, Cody, Ali, Jimmy Havoc, MJF, Kenny Omega, Darby Allin, Jon Moxley, Luchasaurus, the Young Bucks, and Brandy Rhodes. It's funny that they said most featured and then they listed everybody in the fucking trailer. This is, of course, the trailer from weeks and weeks and weeks ago that we saw. It's the same trailer. The tagline for Dynamite is "A New League Rises," though the name of the TV show brings to mind WCW Monday Nitro, the last wrestling show on TNT that ended over 18 years ago. The promotional material doesn't play into nostalgia and instead features lines like, "Do you really want to change the world?" and "They saw what wrestling was and realized what it could be." Here's how AEW represents its product in the press release about the title of the show. AEW is giving a new wrestling experience for the first time in 20 years. AEW is about more than wrestling. It's a movement fueled by fans offering fun, gripping, and authentic athletic matches every week. Founded by President and CEO Tony Khan, the league is headlined by Cody and Brandy Rhodes, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Hangman Adam Page, Chris Jericho, and Jon Moxley. The diverse roster of world-class competitors includes Nyla Rose, Awesome Kong, Dustin Rhodes, Jungle Boy, Dr. Britt Baker, MJF, and SCU. AEW is poised to bring new innovation, new energy, and a new spirit to wrestling. This was specifically what I talked about, this press release not featuring the Lucha Brothers, despite them being such a big draw for the show, and I think it's entirely down to contracts.
Yes, I also feel that it's waiting for Dorian's shit to run out.
Yeah. But that's exciting. Wednesday Night Dynamite, it's about what we expected, just because, like we said, this news has been swirling around forever. And the play off of it being Dynamite when it's on TNT, right? It's the same play that they went for with WCW. I think it's fine if you have to have a name at all. I was hoping they wouldn't, but I think they probably legally do for TV Guide and shit like that. Yeah. How do you feel about the name, Jonathan?
I don't mind it. It's to me, it's like Nitro, but it's also, there was a lot of, it's kind of like, there's the Japanese pay-per-views, there's Wrestle Kingdom, there's Destruction and things like that, where it's a bombastic name to signify something important and very cool. So I have no real hard feelings one way or the other. I'm glad that it's not just called All Elite Wrestling. It needed a title. Mm-hmm. So I'm ambivalent is my best way of saying it.
It's fine.
It's fine. I'm cool with it. It's not dumb.
Head on over to YouTube and watch Wrestlers on the Road Ordering Room Service #2 with SCU. Very good, about 18 minutes long. I want to say, I think this show should be fucking canceled, though. Why is this show called Wrestling on the Road Ordering Room Service? The whole ordering is done in 5 seconds in the intro. Why don't they call this show what it is, which is Wrestlers on the Road talking while others eat room service? Because there's no fucking ordering on the show. And I'm beside myself by how inaccurate this title is. But I love the show. This is it's an awesome episode of great stories from these guys. I'm not going to go through it because I think you should hear these stories from them. And usually what we like to do on this show is stuff that actually is going to have impact on the story moving forward. And none of this does. It's just kind of a fun hangout, shoot interview type thing. But it's cool. It really lets you understand the relationship between the Young Bucks and SCU on a greater level, when they're talking about who influenced who in the group, and how Christopher Daniels was an influence on the Young Bucks and was an influence on Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian and things like that. And that's pretty crazy to see. The Road to AEW on TNT #3. This episode opens with Riho, who put a subtitled promo over some documentary footage. She says, when AEW asked me to wrestle, I said I would fight to the best of my ability. But I wondered, am I good enough on my own? I'm going to try my best. The difference between Japan and AEW is the size of the audience. Being at the center of attention, I am nervous. However, I tell myself I need to have confidence. This opportunity is right here in front of me, so I'm going to take it. At first, I had nothing but worries. The crowd thought, how is this little girl going to fight? They were very confused, but they gained confidence in me and eventually began to think she could do even bigger things, couldn't she? End quote. They started to cheer for me. I work hard and put myself in a place to be cheered for. Because of how I look, people think I am weak, but due to being smaller, my training was always more severe. I've been pro since I was young. I've had a long career. I've been involved in a lot of matches. I've fought many other wrestlers in different weight classes. Surely Nyla will be trying not to lose. Fans who watch this match will surely expect Nyla to win. But with this chance right in front of me, I feel like I can win. It will absolutely happen. I have no weakness or fear. Nyla is the one who should be afraid. If she thinks I'm weak, that would make me happy. I want to have a clean and fair match, win or lose. Nyla, I know you're strong, but I'm going to try my best to win this. I want to be champion. Some of the lines in here, and I understand it's them trying to translate from what she's saying, it's not going to have the nuance of a native English speaker in the way that you can kind of paint with the language, because she's painting in a different language and they're just sort of transcribing, right? But some of these lines, Nyla is the one who should be afraid, is like, I'm not a size mark or anything, but that's a really weird line to say when you're clearly the underdog.
And when you weigh 98 pounds.
Right. And I don't, again, have no problem with someone being undersized in a match with someone who's oversized. I'm not one of these guys who's like, oh, my realism is shattered or whatever. It's just a really weird way to sell yourself in this match where you're like, I have no weakness or fear. Nyla is the one who should be afraid. Even as somebody who doesn't really care about size, I'm sitting here like, yeah, okay. I just don't see it. Riho's upside is a really interesting thing to speculate on, because it's such an uphill battle for her. WWE historically has never really had a breakout star that is a Japanese woman, let alone really hasn't really had a breakout star who's like a super anyone from the Far East, but not even anyone from the Far East, anyone from a truly different country who doesn't speak the language. I guess maybe you could say back when they used to have Iron Sheik type heels, maybe they would have kind of stars that were foreign like that, but to get a foreign baby face like her over, I think is going to be very difficult, because there's not a lot of precedent for it. And it could lead to being one of the things that's very unique about the company. One of the things that people enjoy about the company is that people from different places are given the opportunity to really get over. But I think it's going to be hard for the mainstream audience to get behind her in a big way when she doesn't speak English.
It's going to be difficult, but there's no real other way to do it. Right. She has very basic English skills. I know this because as part of Japanese curriculum, they are taught English, but it's very rudimentary. So being able to give a hard promo like this, it's an uphill battle. And Japanese to English, it's hard. It's real hard, just because your libraries are so different and your alphabets are so different. So it's going to be a little hard to get behind, but she's the underdog, and it does help. She's a cute tiny girl, so people will get behind that. But I don't think she isn't going to be the champion, and she doesn't really need to be the champion.
I think her ring gear could be improved too.
Yes, I agree.
I don't think her ring gear is very good. Whereas you look at someone like Shida, right? And you're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really thoughtful ring gear, really putting something together. Riho's got, she's got a shirt on and a tutu. And it's like, oh, okay. Cool, I guess. I think that's probably, for me, the biggest thing where I'm like, oh, man, that could really be improved for her. And it would, I think, do wonders for her. And maybe that's coming. I don't know. But this her against Nyla Rose match, I think, is probably kind of a layup for Nyla, and I'm excited for that, because I think Nyla should be in that spot. I think that's a great sort of first champion to put it on and have everybody else chase this sort of monster, that and this sort of equality sort of stuff that you can get out of that as well. I think it's a good move for the company to put it on her. It's really lopsided, which makes me think they're going to go the other way, which would be weird and pretty terrible for Nyla, to be beaten for a second time by the same woman who's like way smaller than her, when she's never really had the chance to get over as a monster because she loses a lot.
Yeah.
It would be all right for this to happen after she's had the opportunity to establish herself as a big power, but she really hasn't had that opportunity yet, and I think another loss to Riho would be pretty tough for her, perception-wise. The main event will be... So we're going to move to the control center with Tony Schiavone, who is our host this week again. Schiavone reminds us that Cody versus Sammy G will open TV number 1, a night which will also see the very first AEW Women's World Championship match between Riho and Nyla Rose. The main event will be a 6-man tag between the Elite, Kenny Omega, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson, and Chris Jericho with a +2. Which he supposedly still hasn't revealed, although it might be LAX, but it might not be. Schiavone, he joins in with Alex Marvez in an exclusive club of AEW announced talent that have trouble reading MJF's surname.
I think this was actually on purpose. Marvez completely fucked it up, and there was no salvaging it. Schiavone was fucking with MJF because if it hadn't been the Being the Elite that came out this week, I'd say, okay, what the fuck, dude? But this is going in the gimmick now of like, oh god, this piece of shit. I'm gonna say his name wrong because fuck him.
Short interview that follows with MJF is spectacular. MJF spits hot coffee all over a fat assistant that he has, openly mocks Brandon Cutler for being emotionally vulnerable. MJF addresses Cutler directly. He says he's just an average guy with an average wife and some average snot-nosed brats. MJF says that's why everyone roots for Cutler. He's good. Quote, but you're no MJF, end quote. We like Cutler because he could be our neighbor. MJF would never be your neighbor because he wouldn't be caught dead in your neighborhood. MJF suggests to Cutler that he no-shows on October 2nd and saves himself the embarrassment of losing to MJF in front of his entire family. MJF now addresses Cutler's children directly. He says that he's going to beat Dada's brains in because he's better than you, and you know it. This concludes MJF's segment, which was awesome. This is just super cool. He totally killed. Tony Schiavone now moves on to talk about the tag team tournament. The tournament will include 7 teams. Will start on October 9th in Boston and conclude on October 30th in Charleston, West Virginia. And here's the fucking bracket for your ass right here on the document. I think it's a little unfortunate that there aren't more teams on this tournament. I would have liked to have seen this go even longer, but I guess this is what we're rolling with. 7 teams: Young Bucks, Private Party, Lucha Bros, Jurassic Express, Best Friends, SCU, and the Dark Order. You want to do picks?
Let's do some picks.
Okay. First match, which will air on October 2nd. We don't have air dates for any of the rest of these
6th.
Matches except for the last one.
It's not the 2nd.
Oh, right. Yes.
It's the following week. Yeah.
In Boston.
So
October 6th in Boston.
Yeah, the Bucks are in the first week, Lucha Bros and Jurassic Express, and then Best Friends and SCU are the second week. Mm-hmm. And then Dark Order is down the road.
Yeah, I would guess so. So, Young Bucks versus Private Party in Boston.
Yes. I'm going Private Party. I think Private Party's going to pull this out. I think the Bucks are too over, and I know this is probably going to bite me in the ass, and they're going to end up being the first champions, but I think Private Party is the best pick here.
I actually kind of agree with you on Private Party going over here, only because, I mean, if Young Bucks and Lucha Bros both go over, they're both fighting each other again in the semifinals when it seems like we just kind of capped off that feud, right? And maybe that's the play again. Put a Young Bucks Lucha Brothers match on TV and freak people the fuck out, right? Because it's so crazy and wild. Maybe that's the play, but I don't know. Here's the thing. I think Private Party is going over the Young Bucks and Lucha Bros are going over Jurassic Express. And my reason for that is I think Jurassic Express losing to the Lucha Brothers, not a big deal. Private Party pulling the win over Young Bucks, that's like a huge fucking deal.
Yeah, that's a real big deal.
I think Private Party's gimmick, I think winning matches is a lot more important to Private Party's gimmick than it is to Jurassic Express's gimmick. So I think it's Private Party over Young Bucks. And I think that's just the first upset to knock off the tournament. They're going to have a great match together, and then Private Party are really going to get the opportunity to move forward in the tournament, and then you get Lucha Bros versus Private Party, which is an exciting match, you know. I think that's probably where it's going to go.
Yeah, I do as well, because that gives the Lucha Bros 2 really, really good matches in a row. And then we don't have, again, Lucha Bros versus Young Bucks, that no one needs to see. Mm-hmm. Even if it turns out that we're wrong on both, and it's, you know, Jurassic Express versus Young Bucks, there's really no losers here, grand scheme. It's real bad for Lucha Bros, though.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm looking. On the flip side of the bracket, I really feel like it's going to be SCU, because otherwise we're repeating a match again.
Yeah. So are you Lucha Brothers on the second match as well?
Yeah. If Jurassic Express goes over on this, that's a fuck up. I think
Lucha Bros, I think they need it in a big way, and also I can't bring myself to vote against them. So, Best Friends versus SCU. I mean, I would go Best Friends on that one, personally.
You think they're going to redo Best Friends versus Dark Order?
I mean, that's... You want to have one match that kind of has heat on it, but I guess I understand that. For the sake of having a pick that isn't also your pick, I will do
for
Best
the
Friends.
sake of, they should have done the bracket differently and given Jurassic Express to SCU and put Best Friends against Lucha Bros, so that it looked a little bit more difficult to make picks here.
Sure. Or at least switch which side everybody's on, right?
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, just there would be little changes to make the bracket more, less, visible and translucent of who's going to be in the finals.
Sure, but I'm gonna go Best Friends.
Yeah. I would rather the Best Friends win, but knowing that they're going to be against the Dark Order again, it's like, okay, that's gonna not happen. And
I could see it though. Why develop all this heat? I do think it would be also kind of a funny thing to point out on commentary that they got a buy-in just to face the same guys.
It would be, and I'd be fine with that, especially when Orange Cassidy shows up and just fucks everyone up.
Right.
But yeah, it's just strange. It's very strange to me. So I don't know.
Yeah. So who do you think in the finals?
I still say, I'm gonna go Lucha Bros versus SCU for the finals. That's my pick. I have read in numerous places that the AAA Tag Team Champions will never be mentioned in AEW again, which I personally find hilarious and makes total sense.
Yeah, you're just confusing people at that point.
Yeah, it served its purpose, and enough's enough. And I feel like they're also, management in AEW is pissed at Dorian for ruining some of their matches. So what? Yeah, that's my guess is SCU versus Lucha Bros. I think it's going to be a real tight match, and I'm going to go SCU as the first champions.
Yeah, I think Lucha Bros are going to go over Private Party, I think Best Friends, with the help of Orange Cassidy to negate the minions, are going to go over Dark Order. And then I think Lucha Bros are going to become the champions.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would hope. I would hope if you're not going to do the Bucks, and you don't want to do the Bucks because you're already getting criticized for Cody getting one title match, right? Like, Lucha Bros have got to be the fucking choice.
Either that or Lucha Bros lose in such a way that they are going to go singles.
I mean, yeah, but
they have not shown any of it. They would have to. It would have to be in the finals that happens, because they haven't sown any of the seeds to do something like that yet.
I do agree with you that if not the Lucha Bros or the Young Bucks, SCU is the one that I can easiest see them putting the title on, more than these other teams that I don't think people care enough about yet. Although I think they will maybe by the end of this tournament.
I think they will by the end of the tournament, or at least by after Full Gear. I think people will be caring a lot about all of these tag teams. Maybe not the Dark Order. Dark Order is going to be a hard one to get.
Well, I could see them doing Dark Order because they want to establish them more, but I think with it being your first championship, I think you really want to be like, who's the best tag team, and let's put it on the best one. Because at this point, you're kind of trying to make the championship, not the other way around. Because nobody cares about the championship if it's on some fucking guy they don't care about. But right now, you're kind of trying to establish the champion, and so I would think you would want to put it on a team that you could be like, no, this is the best tag team in the world.
Yeah.
And you can stand behind that, and it's not like, oh, they're going to get there or whatever. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I hope Lucha Brothers for the win here. But I don't know. The biggest outlier for me, the biggest reason why I'm not like, yeah, it's got to be Lucha Bros 100%. Even if that ends up setting up more Young Bucks matches between them later, okay. The one thing that's holding me back is the contract situation.
And that's
still don't know what that is.
It's valid because Dorian's a fuckhead. And he could come if you really pay attention. Other than Laredo Kid, there has not been a single other AAA talent in AEW.
Yeah. So
that's very telling to me, as well as how poorly the AAA Impact pay-per-view went, which I read did 30 buys on pay-per-view.
What are we talking about? The invading
Madison
NY?
Square Garden one.
Oh yeah, that did happen, didn't it?
30.
Wow.
Yeah. So I can see.
I would have watched that too, but they didn't.
I saw a commercial for it on TV, but then I was like, where's it on? But I really don't care. And I think it was like $30 too. So I was like, I really don't care.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see the Lucha Bros getting pulled out of AEW because of Dorian being stupid again. So it would be a temporary thing, I know, because as soon as the contracts are up, Lucha Bros are out of AAA, man. They don't give no fucks anymore.
You would think that they gotta be.
Unless they are getting paid some absolutely ridiculous amount of money. And I'm pretty sure that Tony is probably like, okay, I'll pay you more.
Yeah, Tony's got to be... You got to assume that Tony's got to be going to the table with Dorian and be like, how much?
Yeah.
How much do you fucking want? And granted, I'm sure Dorian would be the type of guy who would hold out on that kind of thing as long as possible and be like, because the value that the Lucha Brothers bring to AAA is enormous. They're basically the only real stars there outside of Mexico. And so
yeah,
that's a tough chip to play with at the table for him. But I'm sure that the money that Tony Khan has come to the table with has been serious fucking money. But oh wow, Yeah, it's wild, man. I can't really. We're gonna have to see. I think it would be
like I said, it's got to be either Dorian's got like their parents locked in a cage, or some like massively incriminating thing, or he is paying them a literal fuck ton of money.
Or the contract, just the terms on the contract are fucking.
Yeah,
really
but after
impressive.
both of them left, I don't feel like the contract is going to be that ironclad. Because when they came back, and I feel like so much that like when they came back, they're like, okay, this is how this is going to go. We're telling you how this is going to go.
When we get the news that they've finally signed contracts with AEW, that'll be the moment where it's like, okay,
Yeah.
big sigh of relief. This is happening for real. And there's going to be stuff moving forward. Until then, there's this sort of
It's a
question mark hanging over everything that they do.
Yeah, there really is, and there's no other way to look at it except like that. Because as crazy as fucking Dorian is, he would just pull them out. Like, no, you're not wrestling for them anymore.
Assuming he's capable of doing that.
He
yes.
would do, even if there was a massive lawsuit involved. He would still do it just to in his mind, have the bigger dick. He's just like Vince, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. He sucks. YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, podcast services everywhere. Subscribe, review, give us 5 stars, just like Meltzer. It makes us feel too sweet. Jonathan?
Too sweet,
How
buddy.
sweet?
Just too sweet.
Just too sweet. Facebook.com/Seeing the Elite. Twitter @Seeing the Elite. Become a part of our ring crew over at tinyurl.com/Seeing the Elite. Join the club. We're having a blast over there. Shout out to the champion, Pumpkin Skull. # thank you, Pumpkin Skull. Our recap episode will drop next week. In addition to our regular episode of Seeing the Elite. Again, if something happened on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday that we couldn't get to, we'll get to it next week. I apologize for the scheduling issue. It's on my end. I have stuff I have to be at all weekend this weekend. So, but when you're hearing this on Monday, thank you so much for joining us. The new era is coming. We're moving to Fridays. We're opening our Patreon, which is going to be awesome, which we'll talk about on our recap episode. Get ready for AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite on TNT. It's going to be explosive, pardon the pun, and it's going to be a really wild new era for professional wrestling. Of course, NXT has already made its debut on USA, which got a little bit of buzz from those in the know. But it's going to be really interesting to see.
It was still only an
sold
hour.
out arena show versus live Full Sail University taping. And you really have to wonder if WWE has brought a knife to a gunfight.
Yes. They have. Not even a knife. They brought a shiny, shiny spoon.
But we'll see, man. We could be eating crow, eating our words. Of course, once the show starts up, I'm going to have a subscription probably through YouTube TV. I think is probably where I'm going to end up going. Jonathan says he'll probably be on Hulu TV.
And even so, man, it's like I told you, if they actually do the things that they say they're going to do with NXT, I will watch it. I have nothing against watching more wrestling.
Either way, I'm
gonna be happy.
Probably gonna end up watching NXT most weeks anyway, because I think it's important to view AEW in the context of what the direct competition is doing. It's not going to be a huge subject on this show, but it will be something that we are knowledgeable about.
Yeah, mainly because when we record, I won't have had time to watch both of them.
Sure, right. So that will be a part of the show, but it's not going to be a constant voice in the show of like, oh, here's what NXT did. We're not going to talk about NXT. That's not what our show is. As always, our show is about talking about AEW and then getting the fuck out of your ears until next week, right? But it is going to be something that we talk about on the show because is
important.
going to become increasingly important in what they're doing.
Yeah, it's important that we know what's going on, and if they're doing something really cool, we'll talk about it. If they're doing something really shitty, we'll talk about it. But it's not going to be what the show is about.
But it's going to be a lot more sort of examining what they're doing as opposed to what AEW is doing.
Yes,
and always from the viewpoint of sort of watching from the inside of AEW out into NXT, right? So.
Yeah, it's going to be a case study of two very, very different wrestling products and how they are competing against each other.
Different philosophies.
Yeah,
now, not as wildly different philosophies as like Monday Night Raw versus AEW would be, right? Where you have a show run by a guy who legitimately like doesn't enjoy professional wrestling.
I mean, it's more of like Raw versus Nitro back in the day, if podcasts had existed then, or a way to provide weekly content.
Right.
Back then, there was not a thing. It was monthly content, and that was behind. So that's the easiest correlation that you can do, and it's going to be very interesting. And I'm excited to see how things go.
Right.
It's going to be probably a shit show, but it's going to be a fun one to watch.
And I think there will probably be weeks where the NXT show is better than what AEW does.
Absolutely. And you will not hear us bemoaning anything or saying, "Oh God, the show's dead. The show's dead." Like, no, it's like, okay, they had a good week.
Motherfucker, we hosted a Lucha Underground podcast for 3 years.
Yeah, we will be the guys that will be saying, it's like, yeah, man, that was a badass NXT show this week, let me tell you.
Man. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Jonathan and I are going to get out of here. Of course, our AEW recap show drops this week, as well as, or our primer show, whatever we're going to end up calling. I usually don't have the title until I upload it, honestly.
I usually find them out as well as with the rest of the audience on Monday morning.
So that's coming, and then I think our final Monday show
will be next week. Yeah,
will be next week.
Well, the week of TV, we will actually have 2 episodes that week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is, man.
Look forward to that. Until then, Jonathan, you got anything more for these people before we go?
It's kind of the same thing I had last week. Go play some video games. There's just even more shit coming out. Zelda comes out by the time this drops will have been out. There's still Borderlands. There's a lot of games out there. Go play them.
Yeah. That's exciting. I'm probably going to get in on that Zelda. Until then, until next week, thank you so much for joining us. Go out and change the world.